Pick it up. Dollar bills scattered across a greasy diner floor. A 20-year-old girl in a wheelchair forced onto her knees, crawling through spilled coffee and boot prints while the senator's son filmed her humiliation. 37 people watched. Not one voice spoke. But exactly 45 minutes later, the ground began to shake. 19 Harley-Davidsons thundered into that parking lot. The Iron Wolves had received a call, and when their president knelt beside that broken girl, he whispered words that changed everything. "You're Maggie's daughter." Before we begin, drop a comment telling us where you're watching from. Your words inspire us to keep telling these stories. Now let's begin. Lily Carter's hands trembled before she even touched the door handle. She sat in her wheelchair outside Crossroads Diner, watching the morning crowd through the grease-smeared window. Families eating eggs. Truckers hunched over coffee. Normal people, living normal lives. She used to be one of them. 3 years ago, before the accident, before the wheelchair, before her mother's coffin disappeared into Texas, clay, Lily would have walked through that door without a second thought. She would have slid into a booth, ordered the blueberry short stack with extra butter, and laughed at something stupid on her phone. Now she had to calculate every entrance. How many steps to the accessible table in the back would anyone be blocking the aisle? Would the waitress pretend not to see her, or worse, speak to her like she was 5 years old? She drew a breath, pushed open the door. The bell above the entrance jingled. Several heads turned. Lily kept her eyes forward, her jaw tight. She had learned long ago that meeting their gazes only invited questions she couldn't bear to answer. "Morning, sweetheart?" Rosa, the waitress, appeared beside her with a coffee pot already in hand. The older woman's smile was tired but genuine, and Lily felt her shoulders loosen just slightly. "The usual spot?" Lily nodded. "Thanks, Rosa. Your mama's booth is open. Kept it clear for you." The words hit Lily somewhere deep. Her mama's booth. 3 years and Rosa still remembered. "I appreciate that." Rosa guided her toward the back corner, past the counter where a few men argued about cattle prices, past the family with 3 kids dropping syrup on everything within reach. Lily's wheels squeaked against the linoleum. She caught a little boy staring at her legs. She was used to it. Children didn't know any better. It was the adults who should. Lily transferred herself from the wheelchair to the booth seat with practiced efficiency. Rosa didn't hover, didn't offer help she hadn't asked for. That small kindness meant more than the waitress probably knew. "Blueberry short stack extra butter. You remembered." Rosa's eyes softened. "Your mama ordered the same thing every Sunday for 12 years. Some things stick." She walked away, and Lily was alone with her thoughts. The envelope sat heavy in her jacket pocket. $1,200. 14 months of saving every penny from her freelance design work. She was 3/4 of the way to the specialized wheelchair that would give her real independence. The kind that could handle Texas back roads and broken sidewalks. Halfway to freedom. She pulled the envelope out just to feel its weight, just to remind herself that she was building something, that her life wasn't completely, well, look what rolled in. Lily's stomach dropped. She knew that voice. Everyone in this town knew that voice. Brandon Mercer stood at the front of the diner, his arm draped around a blonde girl in designer jeans. 2 of his friends flanked them, already snickering. Brandon was 23. The state senator's only son. He had never worked a day in his life. His father owned half the buildings in this county, including the one this diner operated in. Brandon had been raised to believe that money made him untouchable. In this town, he was right. "Hey, Ashley," Brandon's voice carried across the room. "Check it out. It's the cripple." Lily's fingers tightened around the envelope. "Don't react. Don't give him anything. She had learned this lesson in high school before the accident, when Brandon was just a bully with too much allowance and not enough supervision. He fed on reactions, on tears, on any sign that his cruelty had landed. She would not give him that satisfaction. "Remember her," Brandon continued loud enough for everyone to hear. "She's the one whose mom died because she was too slow to get out of the car." The words sliced through Lily like a blade. She felt the blood drain from her face. Her vision tunneled for a moment. She was back in that car, her mother's hand gripping hers, the headlights coming toward them, the screaming, the no. She forced herself to breathe. He doesn't know what happened. He wasn't there. He's just saying words to hurt you. But the words had found their target. Brandon slid into a booth across the aisle, positioning himself for maximum visibility. His girlfriend Ashley giggled nervously and leaned against him. His friends pulled out their phones. Lily stared at her menu, the words blurring. "Just ignore them. Eat your pancakes. Leave." "You know what I heard?" Brandon's voice dropped to a stage whisper that somehow filled the room. "I heard her daddy blames her, says she's the reason his wife is dead." Lily's hands began to shake. How did he know that? How could he possibly know? The answer came immediately. Small towns had no secrets. Her father's drunken rages were probably the subject of half the gossip in the county. Tom Carter, the man who used to coach Little League, now stumbling out of bars at noon, telling anyone who'd listen that his daughter should have died instead. "That's messed up," one of Brandon's friends said, not sounding particularly troubled. "Right. I mean, imagine living with that." Brandon shook his head in mock sympathy. "Every day looking at the girl who killed your wife. I'd drink too." Tears burned behind Lily's eyes. She would not cry. She would not cry in front of him. Rosa appeared with a plate of pancakes, her face carefully neutral. But Lily saw the way her jaw tightened, the way she positioned herself between Lily and Brandon's booth, like a shield. "Here you go, sweetheart. Extra butter, just like your mama liked." "Thank you," Lily whispered. Rosa lingered. "You need anything else, you just holler." The waitress walked away, and Lily picked up her fork. Her appetite was gone, but she would eat anyway. She would eat every bite. She would not let Brandon Mercer see her break. She had survived worse than words. She had survived the crash. "Hey, Wheels!" Lily flinched at the nickname. Brandon was standing now, walking toward her table with his phone raised. "My followers want to see the famous cripple of Ridgefield." Lily's heart hammered. "Please don't. Please. Please don't." Brandon mimicked her voice, high-pitched and mocking. "God, you even sound pathetic." "Brandon," Ashley tugged his arm, her smile faltering. "Maybe we should I'm just being friendly." He stopped beside Lily's table, looming over her. "Aren't I being friendly, Wheels?" Lily couldn't look at him. She stared at her pancakes, her hands clenched in her lap. "Just leave. Please, just leave." "You know what I don't get?" Brandon leaned closer, his breath hot on her cheek. "Why do you even bother coming out? Like, what's the point? You can't walk. You can't dance. You can't do anything normal people do. Why don't you just stay home where nobody has to look at you?" The diner had gone quiet. Lily could feel the eyes on her. Dozens of them. Watching. Waiting. Not a single voice spoke up. "I asked you a question." Brandon's tone sharpened. "Why do you come out?" Something in Lily cracked. "Because I have every right to be here," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Just like you." Brandon's eyebrows shot up. "Oh, she speaks. Did everybody hear that the cripple has a voice?" Laughter from his friends, nervous shifting from the other customers. Lily's face burned. She reached for her coffee, needing something to do with her hands. But Brandon was faster. He bumped the table with his hip, and the mug tipped, sending hot liquid splashing across the tablecloth. Oops. His smile was razor-sharp. Clumsy me. Lily grabbed napkins, dabbing at the mess. Her hands were shaking so badly she could barely hold them. Oh, let me help. Brandon's voice dripped with false concern. You can't do it yourself, right? That's the whole point of being a cripple. He reached for her purse. Don't. Too late. He lifted it off the table, pretending to examine it. What's in here? Let me see. Please, that's mine. He turned it upside down. Everything spilled across the floor. Her wallet, her phone, her keys, and the envelope full of cash. Brandon's eyes lit up. Well, what do we have here? He bent down and picked up the envelope before Lily could reach it. Bills peeked out from the opening. $1,200. 14 months of work. Damn, Wheels. You've been holding out on us. He fanned the money in front of his friends. Look at this. She's loaded. Give it back. Lily's voice cracked. Please, that's everything I have. Everything you have. Brandon's smile widened. Then you should probably take better care of it. He opened his fingers. The bills scattered across the dirty floor, under tables, beneath boots, into the puddle of spilled coffee. Lily lunged forward instinctively, forgetting for one terrible moment that her legs didn't work. Her body pitched sideways. She caught herself on the edge of the table, pain shooting through her shoulder. Brandon roared with laughter. Oh my God, did you see that? She tried to stand up. She actually forgot she's a cripple. His friends were filming now. 3 phones pointed at Lily as she struggled to pull herself back into her seat. Brandon, stop. Ashley's voice had lost its warmth. This isn't funny anymore. It's hilarious. Brandon crouched down, his face level with Lily's. You know what your problem is, Wheels? You think you matter. You think anyone in this room gives a damn about you. He gestured at the silent diner. Look around. Nobody's helping you. Nobody cares. Because you're nothing. You're less than nothing. You're just a broken thing taking up space. Lily's tears finally fell. She hated herself for it. Hated that he had won. Hated that she couldn't stop the sobs building in her chest. That's it. Brandon stood satisfied. Now you're getting it. He stepped on a $20 bill, grinding it into the floor with his heel. Finders keepers right. Lily couldn't breathe. Her chest was crushing in on itself. The money, her freedom, was scattered everywhere, and she couldn't even get to the floor to pick it up. Please, she whispered. That's for a wheelchair. A real one. So you can what? Roll around better. Brandon laughed. Honey, no wheelchair in the world is going to make you normal. Just accept it. You're going to be pathetic for the rest of your life. He turned back to his table. And that's when Lily noticed. Every single person in that diner was looking away. The truckers at the counter suddenly fascinated by their eggs. The family with kids. The father shushing them when they asked why the lady was crying. The young couple in the corner pretending to be deep in conversation. And 3 booths away, Pastor Mitchell from First Baptist stirring his coffee like his life depended on it. He met her eyes for one brief second, then looked away. Something inside Lily shattered. Not because of Brandon. She had known boys like Brandon her whole life. Cruel, small, desperate to feel big by making others feel small. No. What broke her was the silence. The complete, devastating silence of an entire room full of adults who watched a young man torment a disabled girl and did nothing. Excuse me. A woman's voice. Sharp. Clear. Lily looked up. An older woman she didn't recognize was standing by the counter, her purse clutched to her chest. She was staring at Brandon with something that might have been disapproval. "Young man, don't you think that's enough?" Hope flickered in Lily's chest. Brandon turned slowly, his expression amused. "I'm sorry, who are you? I'm someone who was raised to respect others." The woman's chin lifted. "What you're doing is cruel." "What I'm doing is none of your business." Brandon's voice hardened. "Unless you want me to tell my father that Crossroads Diner has customers who harass his son. Pretty sure he owns this building." The woman's face went pale. She sat back down without another word. The hope in Lily's chest died. Brandon smirked at her. "See, Wheels, nobody can touch me. Nobody wants to. Because everybody in this pathetic town knows which side their bread is buttered on." He made a sweeping gesture. "My father owns them. All of them. And that means I can do whatever I want." He walked back to his booth, leaving Lily alone on the floor with her scattered money and her shattered dignity. She began to pick up the bills. It was slow, agonizing work. Her wheelchair was positioned wrong, and she had to drag herself along the dirty linoleum, reaching under tables and between chair legs. Her shoulder screamed where she had hit it. Her tears dripped onto the money as she gathered it. Nobody helped her. Not one person got out of their seat. Rosa appeared with a handful of napkins crouching beside Lily. Her eyes were red. "Honey, I'm so sorry. I can't—" She glanced at Brandon's table. "He'll get my boss to fire me. I have grandkids. I can't lose this job." "It's okay," Lily heard herself say. But it wasn't okay. Nothing about this was okay. She was halfway through collecting the bills when her phone buzzed. Still on the floor, she grabbed it from where it had fallen. The screen was cracked now. That would cost more money she didn't have, but she could see the notification. Unknown number. Probably spam. Or a scam. Or one of Brandon's friends calling to mock her some more. She almost declined it, but something made her swipe to answer. "Hello. Hello, little sister." The voice was deep, rough, like gravel scraped over stone. "I'm sorry, who— Stay exactly where you are. Don't leave that diner. Family's coming." "I don't—" Lily's voice broke. "I don't have any family." A pause. Long and heavy. "Yes, you do. And we're 10 minutes out." The line went dead. Lily stared at her phone. Family. She had no family. Her mother was dead. Her father was a stranger who looked through her like she was a ghost. She had no aunts, no uncles, no cousins who claimed her. So who— A sound reached her ears. Faint at first. So faint she thought she was imagining it. But it grew louder. A rumble. A roar. The kind of sound that made walls vibrate and windows rattle. Motorcycles. A lot of them. Brandon heard it too. He looked up from his phone, frowning. "What the hell is that?" The roar grew louder still. And louder. The glasses on the counter began to shake. The lights flickered. Through the window, Lily saw them. One motorcycle first, then another, then another. They kept coming. 19 Harley-Davidsons pulled into the parking lot of Crossroads Diner, their chrome gleaming in the morning sun. The thunder of their engines drowned out every other sound. And on their backs, in black leather and patched vests, rode the iron wolves. Every person in that diner froze. Brandon's face went white. "Oh, shit," one of his friends whispered. The engines cut off one by one. The silence that followed was somehow more terrifying than the noise. Lily watched through the window as the riders dismounted. They moved with practiced coordination, spreading out, taking positions. This was controlled power. This was a show of force. The diner door opened, and the man who walked through changed everything. He was in his late 50s, tall and broad with silver hair pulled back in a ponytail. His beard was streaked with gray, and his eyes were the kind of blue that had seen things most people couldn't imagine. His leather vest was covered in patches, Iron Wolves colors military insignia, memorial patches for the dead. He looked like war made human, and he walked directly toward Lily. Her heart stopped. This is wrong. This is a mistake. They're going to... The man stopped beside her wheelchair, looked down at the scattered money, the cracked phone, the tears still wet on her cheeks. Then he knelt. This massive, terrifying figure lowered himself to one knee, bringing his gaze level with hers. When he spoke, his voice was quiet, almost gentle. "You're Maggie's girl." Lily's breath caught. Nobody called her mother Maggie. Everyone in this town had called her Margaret, or Mrs. Carter, or that poor woman who died in the crash. "How do you know my mother's name?" The man's jaw tightened. Emotion flickered across that weathered face. Grief. Regret. Something deeper. "Because Margaret Morrison was my baby sister." The diner had gone completely silent. Even Brandon seemed frozen in his booth. Lily couldn't process what she was hearing. "That's not possible. My mother didn't have any siblings. She told you what your father wanted her to tell you." The man's voice carried no anger, only sadness. "My name is Hawk. Maggie and I grew up together, rode together. She was my best friend before she was my sister." He paused. "And she left all of this behind to marry your father and give you a normal life." Lily's world was tilting. Her mother, her quiet, gentle mother who baked cookies and drove a minivan and volunteered at the church. Her mother had been connected to a motorcycle club. "I don't understand," Lily whispered. Hawk's eyes found hers, and suddenly she saw it. The same blue she saw in the mirror every morning. The same shade her mother's eyes had been. "I know you don't, and I'll explain everything." His hand came up slowly, carefully, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, he placed it gently on her shoulder. "But right now, I need you to understand one thing. What? You are not alone." His voice hardened. "You were never alone. I've been watching over you for 8 months, ever since I found out Maggie was gone. And if I had known what was happening in this diner..." He stopped, took a breath. "I'm sorry I didn't come sooner." Lily's tears started again. But these were different. These weren't tears of humiliation. These were tears of something she hadn't felt in 3 years. Hope. "The guy who did this to you." Hawk didn't turn around. Didn't need to. "The one who dumped your money on the floor. He's sitting behind me, isn't he?" Lily nodded. "And nobody in this diner helped you?" "No." Hawk was silent for a long moment. Then he rose to his feet. "Raven." A woman stepped forward from the line of bikers. She was in her 40s, lean and sharp-featured with kind eyes that contradicted her intimidating presence. "Help my niece collect her things. Make sure she has everything." Raven nodded and crouched beside Lily, carefully gathering the scattered bills with hands that moved with practiced efficiency. Hawk turned to face the diner. "Which one of you is Brandon Mercer?" The silence stretched. Brandon's friends suddenly discovered urgent messages on their phones. Ashley slid away from her boyfriend, putting distance between them. Brandon didn't move. I'm talking to you, boy. Hawk's voice carried without rising. Stand up. Do you know who my father is? Brandon's voice was meant to be bold, but it cracked. Richard Mercer, state senator, owns the building this diner operates in, along with half the commercial property in the county. Hawk's tone remained conversational. Also owes $300,000 to some very unpleasant people in Houston. Had an affair with a lobbyist in Austin 2 years ago. Pays her $800 a month to keep quiet. Cheated on his taxes in 2021 and 2022. He paused. Shall I continue? Brandon's face had gone from white to gray. How do you? When my sister died, I made it my business to know everything about the town that let her die. Hawk took a step forward, including the family of the boy who's been tormenting her daughter. Deputy Wilson, who had been sitting at the counter pretending to be invisible, cleared his throat. Now hold on. I'm a law enforcement officer. You can't just... Deputy Wilson. Hawk didn't even look at him. You've been sitting there for 20 minutes. You watched a grown man humiliate a disabled girl. You watched him destroy her property. You watched her crawl on the floor to pick up her own money. Hawk's voice dropped to ice. And you did nothing. The deputy's mouth opened, closed. That's what I thought. Hawk returned his attention to Brandon. Stand up. This time, Brandon obeyed. His legs were visibly shaking. You called her a cripple. Hawk's voice was quiet, almost conversational. You told her she shouldn't exist. You said nobody cares about her. He gestured at the line of bikers behind him. There are 18 people in this room who disagree. Brandon swallowed hard. Look, I was just joking around. You didn't mean to get caught. A voice from behind Lily. She turned. Raven was holding a phone. Brandon's friend's phone, which she had apparently confiscated without anyone noticing. This one was live streaming, Raven said calmly. 2,000 people watched you torment that girl. The comments are not favorable. Brandon's face went from gray to green. Give me that. It's already uploaded. Raven's smile was cold. Automatically saved to 3 different platforms. Even if you delete the original, it's out there forever now. She glanced at the screen. Oh, look. Someone's already tagged the University of Texas admissions office. That's my son's property, a new voice boomed across the diner. Lily's stomach clenched. Senator Richard Mercer had arrived. He stood in the doorway, his expensive suit a stark contrast to the leather and denim that filled the room. His face was red with fury, and he was already reaching for his phone. I'm calling the state police. I'm having every single one of you arrested for what? Hawk's voice cut through the bluster like a blade. For being witnesses to your son's behavior, for standing in a public establishment, for offering comfort to a grieving girl, for intimidation, for threats. I haven't touched anyone. I haven't threatened anyone. Hawk spread his hands. I've asked questions, stated facts. If those facts are intimidating, perhaps you should examine why. Mercer's jaw worked. You think you can come into my town and your town? Hawk's voice dropped to something dangerous. Let me tell you about your town senator. He took one step forward, then another. Your town let my sister die. She was driving home from visiting her own mother's grave. Did you know that there was a drunk driver on the road? A man named Carl Henderson. He had 3 prior DUIs that your office plea bargained down to nothing because his brother donates to your campaign. Mercer's face went pale. That drunk driver hit my sister's car head-on. Hawk's voice cracked. And Maggie, my Maggie, she had 1 second to make a choice. She could have braced herself, could have tried to survive. He swallowed hard. Instead, she threw herself across her daughter, shielded her with her own body, took the impact so Lily would live. Lily's vision blurred. She had known the facts of the accident, but she had never known this. Her mother had chosen to die for her. So when you stand there and tell me this is your town, Hawk's eyes burned into Mercer. When your son tells my niece she should have died instead when he says she's worthless, that nobody cares about her. He leaned in close. I need you to understand something, Senator. You have made a very serious mistake. Mercer's hand was shaking on his phone. What do you want? Hawk straightened. I want your son to apologize, really apologize, on camera, for the same platforms that saw him torment her. And if he doesn't? Hawk smiled. It wasn't a pleasant expression. Then the documents I have about your finances, your affairs, and your very creative interpretation of campaign finance law find their way to the Houston press. He paused. Your choice. The diner was utterly still. Mercer looked at his son, at the bikers, at Lily still sitting with tears on her face and scattered money in her lap. Brandon, he said finally, apologize. What dad you can't be now. Brandon's face contorted. For a moment Lily thought he might refuse. Then his shoulders slumped. He walked toward her, each step heavy. When he reached her table, he couldn't meet her eyes. He stopped, swallowed. I'm sorry. Look at her. Hawk's voice was steel. Look at her face when you say it. Brandon raised his eyes. Lily saw something she had never expected to see. Fear. Real fear. The kind that came from suddenly realizing that actions had consequences, that the armor of wealth and privilege had cracks. I'm sorry, Brandon said again. I was wrong. I was cruel. And He trailed off. And you what? Hawk prompted. Brandon's voice dropped to barely a whisper. And I had no right to say those things to you. Silence. Lily looked at this boy who had tormented her, who had called her worthless, who had made her feel like less than human. And she felt something unexpected. Not forgiveness. That would take time if it ever came at all. But pity, because Brandon Mercer was looking at her now, really looking. And she could see that he had never once considered her a person. She had been a target, a joke, a way to feel powerful. And now, forced to see her as human, he had no idea what to do. I don't forgive you, Lily said quietly. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Brandon flinched. But I want you to remember something. Her voice grew stronger. I wanted pancakes this morning. Just pancakes. The kind my mother used to order. That's all I wanted. And you decided I didn't deserve even that. She held his gaze. You don't have the right. Nobody has the right to take that from someone else. The words hung in the air. Lily hadn't planned them, hadn't rehearsed them. They came from somewhere deep, somewhere that had been silent for 3 years. You don't have the right to decide who matters and who doesn't. You don't have the right to tell me I should have died. You don't have the right to my dignity. Her hands were shaking, but her voice was steady. I didn't choose to be in this wheelchair. I didn't choose to lose my mother. But I am choosing to be here. I am choosing to exist in spaces I have every right to exist in, and neither you nor your father nor anyone else gets to take that away from me. Brandon backed away. He looked for the first time like exactly what he was, a scared boy who had never learned that other people were real. We're done here, Hawk said. Take your son home, Senator, and remember what I told you. Mercer grabbed Brandon's arm and pulled him toward the door. Ashley followed, her face pale, her phone clutched to her chest like a shield. They were almost gone when Lily called out. Brandon, he turned. My mother's name was Margaret. Lily's voice didn't waver. Not the woman who died. Margaret Morrison Carter. And she was the bravest person I've ever known. Remember that too. The door swung shut. They were gone, and Lily, broken, crying, exhausted, felt something she hadn't felt in 3 years. Not victory, not triumph, but presence. She existed. She mattered. She had spoken, and she had been heard. Hawk knelt beside her again. You did good, little sister. I don't even know you, Lily whispered. No, but I know you. His eyes, her mother's eyes, held hers. I've been watching you fight for 3 years. Fight to survive. Fight to exist. Fight to matter in a world that keeps telling you not to. He took her hand. Maggie knew you had thunder in your heart. That's what she used to say. That girl's got thunder in her heart. Lily's tears spilled over. She never told me about you. She wanted to protect you from this life, from the things I've done. Hawk's voice roughened. But I think maybe she was wrong. Because you're going to need people who will fight for you, Lily. Really fight. Not just look away when it gets uncomfortable. He glanced at the silent diner. And those people aren't here. Lily looked around at the faces she had known her whole life. The truckers who had watched her crawl on the floor. Pastor Mitchell, who still couldn't meet her eyes. The woman who had spoken up and then backed down. Not one of them had helped. But 19 strangers in leather jackets had crossed the state to make sure she was okay. What happens now? She asked. Hawk stood. Now we make sure you're safe. We make sure you have everything you need. And we have a conversation, you and me, about your mother. About who she really was. He held out his hand. But first, let's get you some pancakes. The good kind. Maggie's kind. Lily took his hand. And for the first time since her mother's funeral, she didn't feel alone. The pancakes arrived steaming hot, just the way Lily remembered. Rosa set the plate down with trembling hands, her eyes darting between Lily and the massive man sitting across from her. 18 bikers had spread throughout the diner. Some at the counter, others in booths, all of them watching the door like they expected trouble to walk through it at any moment. On the house, Rosa whispered. Both plates. Hawk nodded once. Appreciate it. The waitress hurried away, and Lily found herself alone with a stranger who claimed to be family. She stared at her pancakes, unable to eat, unable to think. You have her eyes. Lily looked up. Hawk was watching her with an expression she couldn't read. Everyone says that. Because it's true. He picked up his coffee, cradling it in hands that were scarred and weathered. Maggie had those same eyes, could see right through you with one look. Don't call her that. The words came out sharper than Lily intended. Hawk's eyebrow rose. Maggie. That's what my father calls her. Lily's throat tightened. Called her. When he's drunk. When he wants to remind me that she's gone and I'm still here. Hawk's jaw hardened. Your father and I need to have a conversation. Good luck with that. He barely talks to me and we live in the same house. He'll talk to me. Something in his tone made Lily believe it. She picked up her fork, pushed a piece of pancake around her plate. The questions were piling up faster than she could process them, and she didn't know where to start. How come I never knew about you? Hawk set down his coffee. That's a long story. I've got time. You sure you want to hear it? Some of it isn't pretty. Lily met his eyes. My mother died protecting me. My father blames me for surviving. I just got humiliated in front of an entire diner full of people who did nothing. Her voice steadied. I think I can handle not pretty. Hawk studied her for a long moment. Then something in his face softened, and he nodded. Right. You want the truth? Here it is. He leaned back in his seat. Your grandmother, my mother, she died when Maggie was 15. Overdose. Our old man was already gone by then. Took off when Maggie was a baby. So it was just me and her. Lily's fork stopped moving. I was 23, already riding with the wolves. It wasn't a good life for a teenage girl, but it was the only life I had to offer. Hawk's voice roughened. Maggie didn't care. She wanted to be part of it. Wanted to ride. Wanted to belong to something. And for a few years she did. My mother rode motorcycles. Rode better than half the guys in the club. A ghost of a smile crossed Hawk's face. She was fearless. Wild. The kind of person who made you feel like anything was possible. Lily tried to reconcile this image with the mother she remembered. The woman who drove a minivan, who baked cookies for school fundraisers, who cried at commercials for long-distance phone plans. What happened? She met your father. The words landed like stones in still water. Tom was different back then. Young, ambitious, had just finished law school, wanted to change the world. Hawk's expression hardened. He walked into a bar where we were drinking and saw Maggie across the room. That was it. Done. He couldn't see anything else. And she, he paused. She felt the same. Or thought she did. She loved him. She loved what he represented. Stability. Respectability. A life where nobody looked at her like she was trash. She wasn't trash. I know that. You know that. But Maggie? Hawk shook his head. She carried our mother's shame like it was her own. She thought if she could just be normal enough, good enough, clean enough, maybe she could outrun where she came from. Lily's heart ached. She understood that feeling. The desperate need to be something other than what the world saw when it looked at you. So she left. She left. Hawk's voice was flat. Married Tom. Moved to this town. Cut off everyone from her old life, including me. Just like that. Just like that. When he met her eyes. I didn't even know she was pregnant until after you were born. She sent me one letter. With a photo. You were maybe 3 months old. His voice cracked. She said she was happy. Said she had everything she ever wanted. Said please don't contact her again because it would ruin everything she'd built. Lily's throat closed. And you listened. I listened. Hawk's hands tightened around his mug. Because I loved her. Because I wanted her to have the life she dreamed of, even if it meant losing her. He swallowed hard. I thought I was doing the right thing. The diner seemed to fade around them. Lily could only see this man, this stranger, who was her blood, carrying the weight of 20 years of silence. When did you find out she died? Hawk was quiet for a long moment. 8 months ago. Lily's breath caught. 8 months, but she's been gone for 3 years. Nobody told me. The words came out rough, raw. Maggie had cut all ties. Her death notice was in the Ridgefield Gazette. Not exactly wide circulation. I only found out because an old friend was passing through Texas and happened to pick up a copy. He pulled something from his vest pocket. A folded piece of newspaper worn soft from handling. I've read this 1,000 times. Lily took it with shaking hands. It was her mother's obituary. Margaret Marie Carter, beloved wife and mother, taken too soon. When I read this, I thought I was going to die. Hawk's voice was barely audible. My baby sister. Gone. And I didn't even get to say goodbye. Lily's tears spilled over. I came here the next week, he continued. Stood outside your house for 3 hours trying to work up the courage to knock on the door. Watched you wheel yourself to the mailbox. Watched your father stumble out to his truck without even looking at you. Why didn't you come to me then? Because I didn't know if you'd want me. Hawk's eyes glistened. Maggie left me behind for a reason. She wanted you to have a different life, a better life. Who was I to come crashing in and destroy that, a better life? Lily's voice rose. You call this better? My father can't look at me. I haven't had a real conversation with another person in months. I spend every day just trying to survive until the next one. She was crying openly now, and she didn't care. I needed someone. Anyone. And you were out there watching. I know. Hawk reached across the table. His hand covered hers, warm, steady. I was wrong. I thought I was protecting Maggie's choice. But I was really just scared. Scared you'd reject me. Scared you'd look at me the way your father looks at me, like I'm something dirty. Something your mother should be ashamed of. I would never... I know that now. His grip tightened. When Rosa called me this morning, told me what was happening, something broke inside me. I thought that's my niece, that's Maggie's daughter, and I'm hiding in the shadows while she suffers alone. He met her eyes. Never again, Lily. I swear to you. Never again. The words settled into Lily's chest like a promise. She turned her hand over, gripped his fingers. Tell me more about her. The parts I didn't know. Hawk's face transformed. The hardness melted away, replaced by something tender. She used to sing. She sang to me every night until I was 12. Yeah, but I mean really sing. She had this voice. He shook his head. She'd get up on the bar at whatever dive we were drinking at and sing old country songs. Patsy Cline, Loretta Lynn. Guys who'd been in bar fights the night before would sit there with tears running down their faces. Lily smiled through her tears. She sang crazy at my 8th birthday party. Dad told her she was embarrassing herself. Hawk's expression darkened. Sounds like Tom. He wasn't always like that. Lily didn't know why she was defending him. Before the accident, he was different. Not warm exactly, but present. He tried. And after, Lily's voice dropped. After, it was like I died too. He looks at me and sees her, and he can't stand it. So he drinks. So he drinks. Hawk was quiet for a moment. Then he asked the question Lily had been dreading. What happened that night, the accident? I only know what I read in the paper. Lily's whole body went cold. I can't. Her voice shattered. I can't talk about it. Not yet. Please. Hawk studied her face. Whatever he saw there made him nod. Okay, when you're ready. If you're ever ready. Thank you. They sat in silence for a moment. Lily picked up her fork, took a bite of pancake. It tasted like memory. Like Sunday mornings, and her mother's laugh. Like a time when the world made sense. These are perfect, she whispered. Maggie's recipe. Rosa had appeared beside them, refilling Hawk's coffee. She squeezed his shoulder gently as she passed. She taught me herself. Must have been 12 years ago now. Said her grandmother made them the same way. Lily looked up. You knew her before. Before Tom, before you, before everything. Rosa's eyes were sad. Maggie and I went to high school together. She was 2 years behind me. Wildest girl I ever met. Why didn't you ever tell me? She asked me not to. Rosa's voice cracked. When she married Tom, she made me promise. No stories about the old days. No reminders of who she used to be. She wanted a clean slate. Everyone keeps saying that. Lily's frustration bubbled over. Clean slate, different life, better life. But she was still the same person inside, wasn't she? She didn't actually change. Rosa and Hawk exchanged a look. "No," Rosa said softly. "She didn't change. She just learned to hide the best parts of herself." The words hit Lily like a physical blow. Hiding. Her mother had spent her whole life hiding. And Lily had never even known. "I should have seen it," she whispered. "I should have known she was unhappy." "She wasn't unhappy." Hawk's voice was firm. "She had you. That made everything worth it. Then why?" The diner door slammed open. Every biker in the room tensed. Hands moved toward belts. The sudden shift from quiet conversation to coiled readiness happened in a heartbeat. Tom Carter stood in the doorway. Lily's father looked like he hadn't slept in days. His clothes were wrinkled, his hair uncombed, and even from across the room Lily could smell the whiskey. But his eyes were sharp and furious. "Get away from my daughter." Hawk didn't move. "Tom! Don't you say my name." Tom's voice shook with rage. "Don't you dare! I know who you are. I know what you are." "Dad," Lily's voice was small. "It's okay. He's not—" "Be quiet, Emma." Tom didn't even look at her. "This doesn't concern you. She's my niece." Hawk rose slowly from the booth. "Everything about her concerns me. She's my daughter. Mine, not yours. You don't get to swoop in here and what care about her?" Hawk's voice dropped to something dangerous. "Because you've done such a fantastic job of that." Tom's face went red. "You don't know anything about my family. I know Maggie died 3 years ago, and you've been drowning in a bottle ever since. I know your daughter has been raising herself while you stumble through what's left of your life. I know she came to this diner for pancakes, the same pancakes her mother used to order, and got humiliated by some rich kid while you were probably passed out somewhere." Each word landed like a hammer blow. Tom flinched. That's exactly what happened." Hawk took a step forward. "I've been watching Tom for 8 months. I've seen everything. You had no right. I had every right. She's blood. My blood. Maggie's blood." Tom's composure cracked. "Don't you talk about her. Don't you say her name." "Margaret." Hawk said it deliberately. "Margaret Marie. My sister. The woman who loved you enough to leave everything behind. The woman who died saving your daughter while you weren't even there. Stop! The woman you've been punishing Lily for, because you can't face your own guilt." "I said stop." Tom lunged. He was drunk and uncoordinated, but the fury behind the movement was real. Hawk sidestepped, easily caught Tom's arm, and spun him into the nearest booth. The impact knocked the breath out of him. "I'm not going to fight you." Hawk's voice was controlled. "Not in front of Lily, not anywhere. But you need to hear something, and you're going to listen." Tom struggled, but Hawk's grip was iron. "Maggie loved you. God knows why, but she did. She gave up everything for you. Her family, her friends, her whole identity. She spent 18 years trying to be the woman you wanted her to be. She was perfect." Tom's voice broke. "She was everything." "No, she was human. She was complicated and wild and scared and brave, and you never let her be any of those things." Hawk's eyes burned. "You wanted a trophy wife, a respectable mother for your children, and Maggie loved you enough to play that role until it killed her." Lily sat frozen in her wheelchair, unable to move, unable to breathe. She had never heard anyone talk to her father like this. "The night she died," Hawk continued, "she was coming back from visiting our mother's grave. Did you know that she drove 2 hours to put flowers on a grave you never let her visit while you were watching? Because you were ashamed of where she came from." Tom stopped struggling. "She visited alone. Always alone. Never told anyone." Hawk's voice cracked. "And on the way back, A drunk driver crossed the center line. Tears streamed down Tom's face. She had 1 second to make a choice. 1 second. And she chose Lily. I know, and Tom's whisper was barely audible. I know how she died. Then why? Hawk's grip tightened. Why do you look at Lily like she's the enemy? Why do you blame her for surviving? Because it should have been me. The words tore out of Tom like a confession. I should have been in that car. I was supposed to drive her to the cemetery, but I had a meeting. A goddamn meeting that I don't even remember now. So she went alone. And she died alone. And our daughter... He broke down completely. Our daughter had to watch her mother die on top of her, had to feel her body go limp, had to wait for rescue while her mother's blood... Dad, stop. Lily's voice shattered the moment. Please stop. Both men turned to look at her. She was shaking. Tears poured down her face. The memories she'd spent 3 years suppressing were clawing their way to the surface. I was awake. Her voice was barely a whisper. When she covered me, when the other car hit, I was awake for all of it. Hawk released Tom. Both men stood frozen. She looked at me. Lily's eyes were distant, seeing something neither of them could see. Right before the impact, she looked at me and smiled, and she said, I love you, baby girl. Close your eyes. The diner was utterly silent. I didn't close them. I wanted to see her. I wanted to remember her face. Lily's voice broke. And then the glass was everywhere. And she was on top of me. And I couldn't breathe. And I kept saying, Mom, wake up. Mom, please wake up. She buried her face in her hands. I said it for 45 minutes, until the firefighters came, until they pulled her off me and I saw... She couldn't finish. Hawk moved first. He crossed the space between them and pulled Lily into his arms, wheelchair and all. She sobbed against his chest. 3 years of grief poured out of her. I'm sorry, she choked out. I'm sorry I couldn't save her. I'm sorry I survived. I'm sorry... No. Hawk's voice was fierce. You don't apologize for being alive. Ever. Do you hear me? Maggie made a choice? The choice she wanted to make. The choice any mother would make. He pulled back, gripped her shoulders. You are not responsible for her death. You are the reason it meant something. Lily stared at him, tears streaming. She saved you because you were worth saving. Because she knew you had something to offer this world. Because she believed in you. His voice shook. Don't you dare apologize for that. Don't you dare let anyone make you feel guilty for the gift your mother gave you. Across the room, Tom stood motionless. The anger had drained out of him. In its place was something Lily had never seen on her father's face. Shame. Real, devastating shame. I didn't know, he whispered. About the 45 minutes. About what you saw. You never told me. You never asked. Lily's voice was hollow. You never asked me anything. You just disappeared into the bottle. Into yourself. You left me alone with all of it. Tom's legs gave out. He slumped against the nearest booth, his face gray. I thought if I didn't talk about it, I could pretend it wasn't real. I thought if I didn't look at you, I wouldn't see her. I wouldn't remember. And instead, Lily's voice hardened. You made me feel like I killed her. The words hung between them. Lily. Tom's voice cracked. I never meant... You said it. Her voice was steel now. 100 times, when you were drunk. She died for you. She should have let you die. At least then I'd still have her. Hawk's hand tightened on Lily's shoulder. You said that, he growled. To your own daughter. Tom couldn't meet his eyes. I was drunk. I didn't mean... But you said it, over and over, and she had to live with those words. Hawk stepped toward Tom. Do you have any idea what you've done to her? Any idea at all? I know. Tom's voice broke. I know what I've done. Do you? Because from where I'm standing, you've spent 3 years killing the girl Maggie died to save. The accusation hit Tom like a physical blow. He looked at Lily, really looked at her maybe for the first time since the accident, saw the dark circles under her eyes, the thinness of her frame, the way she held herself like she was bracing for the next impact. Oh God, he whispered. Lily, what have I done to you? Lily didn't answer. She couldn't. Raven appeared beside Hawk, her voice quiet. We've got company. Through the window, 3 police cruisers pulled into the lot. Hawk straightened. Mercer? Who else? He's probably calling in every favor he's got. The diner door opened. Sheriff Buck Davis walked in, his hand resting on his holster. 2 deputies flanked him. Hawk, the sheriff's voice was tight. I need you and your boys to step outside. On what charge? Disturbing the peace, intimidation. I'll think of something else by the time we get to the station. We haven't done anything illegal. We bought breakfast. We had a conversation. Last I checked, that wasn't a crime. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. Hawk didn't move. Sheriff, you know who sent you here. You know why. And you know this is wrong. Davis's jaw tightened. I'm doing my job. Your job is to protect people like her. Hawk pointed at Lily. Not cover for rich kids who torment disabled girls. That's not. Brandon Mercer dumped her purse on the floor, stepped on her money, made her crawl to pick it up while your deputy sat right there and watched. Hawk's voice rose. And now you want to arrest us for showing up. The sheriff hesitated. Everybody's got a boss, Hawk. You know how it works. Yeah, I know how it works. Hawk's voice was cold. I also know that every person in this diner saw what happened, and I know at least 3 of them were recording on their phones. He let that sink in. So you can arrest me. You can make up whatever charges you want. But by the time we get to the station, this story will be everywhere, and Senator Mercer's name will be attached to every single share. The sheriff's face went pale. Your call, Buck. You want to bet your career on Richard Mercer's gratitude. The moment stretched. Then Sheriff Davis lowered his hand from his holster. Everybody just stay calm. I'm going to make some calls. He stepped outside. Through the window, Lily could see him arguing into his phone, his face getting redder by the second. That bought us some time. Raven's voice was grim, but not much. Hawk nodded. Get the bikes ready. We're leaving in 10. What about her? Raven's eyes flicked to Lily. She comes with us. Lily's head snapped up. What? You're not safe here. Hawk crouched beside her wheelchair. Mercer's going to retaliate. He can't touch us, so he'll come after you. Through your father's business, through your job, through anything he can find. I can't just leave. You can't just stay. Not today. Not until things cool down. Lily looked at her father. Tom stood apart from everyone, his shoulders slumped. He looked old, broken. But when he met Lily's eyes, something passed between them. Go with them, he said quietly. Dad, I can't protect you. The admission seemed to cost him everything. I couldn't protect Maggie. I can't protect you. But maybe, he looked at Hawk. Maybe he can. Hawk straightened. I'll keep her safe. You have my word. Your word, Tom laughed bitterly. What's that worth? It's worth everything. Hawk's voice was steel. Because I don't break it. Ever. The 2 men stared at each other. 20 years of history hung between them. The woman they'd both loved. The choices that had torn her apart. the damage that couldn't be undone. "If anything happens to her," Tom started. "It won't. If anything happens to her," Tom repeated, "I will find a way to kill you, even if it takes the rest of my life." Hawk nodded slowly. "Fair enough?" Lily watched this exchange with something approaching wonder. For the first time in 3 years, her father was fighting for her. In his broken, inadequate way, he was trying. It wasn't enough, but it was something. "I'll come back," Lily said. "This isn't goodbye." Tom's eyes filled with tears. "I know I don't deserve—" "You don't." Her voice was honest, not cruel. "But you're my father, and somewhere underneath all that pain, you're still the man she loved." She wheeled herself toward the door. "Figure out who you want to be, Dad. Sober, present, real. And maybe we can start over." She didn't wait for his response. The morning sun hit her face as she rolled through the door. 18 bikers stood in formation around the parking lot, their engines idling, their eyes watching for threats. Raven appeared beside her with a leather jacket. This was Maggie's. Hawk kept it all these years. Lily ran her fingers over the worn leather. Her mother's jacket, evidence of a life she never knew existed. "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet." Raven's smile was sharp. "This is going to get a lot harder before it gets easier." "I know." "Do you—" Raven studied her face. "Mercer isn't going to let this go. He's going to come after all of us. And when he does, you're going to have to decide who you really are." Lily looked back at the diner. Her father stood in the window watching. Rosa was beside him, her hand on his shoulder. "I'm Maggie's daughter," Lily said quietly. "Turns out that means more than I ever knew." Hawk appeared beside her. "Ready? Where are we going? Somewhere safe, somewhere we can talk, somewhere you can figure out what comes next." He gestured to a modified motorcycle with a sidecar. "It's not exactly accessible, but we made it work." Lily stared at the sidecar, at the iron wolves assembled around her, at the life she was about to leave behind. Then she remembered Brandon's words. "Why do you even bother coming out?" She remembered the silence of the diner. She remembered 45 minutes in a crushed car begging her mother to wake up. "Let's go," she said. Hawk helped her transfer into the sidecar. It was awkward, undignified. But when she settled into the seat, something inside her shifted. For the first time in 3 years, she was choosing her own path. The engines roared to life. 19 motorcycles pulled out of the Crossroads Diner parking lot in perfect formation. The sound shook the windows, rattled the foundations, announced to everyone in Ridgefield that something had changed. Lily turned for one last look at the town that had watched her suffer in silence. Then she faced forward. Whatever came next, she wouldn't face it alone. And somewhere above her, she could have sworn she heard her mother singing. The road stretched out before them like a ribbon of gray cutting through the Texas flatlands. Lily gripped the edge of the sidecar, the wind whipping her hair, the thunder of 19 engines, drowning out every thought she'd carried for the past 3 years. She felt free for the first time since the accident. She felt like she could breathe. Hawk rode beside her, his silver braid streaming behind him like a battle flag. Every few minutes he glanced over to check on her. Each time she nodded. Each time he smiled. They rode for nearly an hour before the formation began to slow. Raven pulled up alongside the sidecar. "Clubhouse is just ahead. You doing okay?" Lily nodded, though her heart was racing. "What happens when we get there?" "Food, rest, conversation." Raven's eyes were kind but serious. "And some decisions you're going to need to make." What kind of decisions? The kind that change everything. Before Lily could ask what that meant, they turned off the main road onto a dirt path that wound through a grove of oak trees. The clubhouse appeared around the bend, a large wooden structure that looked more like a ranch house than anything threatening. The engines cut off one by one. The sudden silence was almost shocking. Hawk dismounted and crossed to Lily's sidecar. "Need help?" "I've got it." She didn't. Not really. But she'd spent 3 years learning to do things people said she couldn't. Transferring from the sidecar to her wheelchair was awkward and painful, but she managed. Hawk watched without interfering. When she was settled, he nodded approvingly. Maggie was the same way. Stubborn as hell. Never asked for help unless she absolutely had to. Sounds like a compliment. It is. The clubhouse door opened and an older woman stepped out. She was perhaps 65, with steel-gray hair pulled back in a practical bun, and eyes that had seen everything twice. "So, this is her." The woman's voice was gravelly, but warm. "Margaret's girl." "This is Mama Ruth." Hawk's voice softened. "She's not actually anyone's grandmother, but she's been mother to every lost soul who's walked through that door for 40 years. Ruth crossed the distance between them and stopped in front of Lily's wheelchair. For a long moment she just looked. Then her eyes filled with tears. "Lord have mercy. You look just like her." Everyone keeps saying that. Because it's true. Ruth reached out, touched Lily's cheek with weathered fingers. "I held your mama when she was 17 years old and scared out of her mind. I was the one who taught her how to ride, how to fight, how to survive." Lily's throat tightened. "She never told me any of this. She was trying to protect you, give you a life without all this." Ruth gestured at the clubhouse, the motorcycles, the men and women in leather. She thought normal was better. Was she wrong? Ruth's expression grew complicated. "That's a question you'll have to answer for yourself." She stepped back suddenly, all business. "Come inside. You look like you haven't eaten a real meal in months. We'll fix that first. Then we'll talk about what comes next." The clubhouse interior was nothing like Lily expected. She'd imagined something dark and dangerous. Pool tables, neon beer signs, weapons on the walls. Instead, she found a comfortable living space with worn couches, a massive kitchen, and photographs covering every surface. "Those are the ones we've lost." Hawk noticed her looking at a memorial wall near the entrance. Dozens of faces stared back at her. "Brothers and sisters who rode with us and didn't make it home." Lily's eyes found a familiar face. "Is that your mother?" Hawk's voice was rough. "We added her picture 8 months ago, when I found out." The photograph showed a young woman Lily barely recognized. Margaret couldn't have been more than 20. Wild hair, bright eyes, a smile that seemed to challenge the whole world. She looked so happy. She was happy. For a while. Hawk stood beside her, studying the image. Before she convinced herself that happiness wasn't enough, that she needed something more respectable. Did she ever regret leaving? Hawk was quiet for a long moment. I asked her that, in the one phone call she allowed herself, maybe 10 years after she left. She said no. She said you were worth everything she gave up. His voice cracked. But I think the truth was more complicated. I think she missed this life every single day. I think she loved your father, but also resented him for making her choose. And I think she spent 18 years pretending to be someone she wasn't, and it wore her down in ways nobody could see. That's not fair to her. No, it's not. Hawk turned to face Lily. But it's honest, and I think you've had enough lies to last a lifetime. Before Lily could respond, Raven burst through the front door. "Hawk, we've got a problem." "What kind?" "The video kind." Raven held up her phone. "Brandon Mercer's little stream. It's everywhere, and it's not playing the way he wanted." Hawk took the phone. Lily wheeled herself closer to see. The screen showed a social media platform, a video playing on loop. She recognized the diner, recognized herself on the floor scrambling for scattered money while Brandon and his friends laughed. The view count read 4.7 million. "Oh my God," Lily whispered. "That's not all." Raven swiped to show the comments. "Look at what people are saying." Lily read through the flood of reactions. Most were outraged, calling Brandon a monster, demanding he be held accountable. But some were different. "I know that girl. She's the one whose mom died in that crash. This is Ridgefield, Texas. The senator's kid always gets away with everything. Someone needs to teach that little punk a lesson." Iron Wolves showed up at the diner afterward. "There's another video." Hawk scrolled down. Another video appeared. Lower quality, shot from inside the diner. It showed the bikers arriving. Showed Hawk kneeling beside Lily. Showed Senator Mercer being confronted. This one had 3.2 million views. And climbing. "We're all over the news," Raven said. "Local, regional, starting to go national. People are calling it the diner incident." Lily's hands were shaking. "I didn't want this." "I know." Hawk's voice was gentle but firm. "But it's happening. And now we need to decide how to handle it." "Handle it how?" "The world is watching Lily. They've seen you at your lowest moment. They've seen a rich kid humiliate you while a whole town did nothing." Hawk met her eyes. "The question is, what do you want them to see next?" Lily didn't have an answer. Her phone buzzed. Then again. Then continuously, an endless stream of notifications. "Word got out," Raven explained. "Someone posted your name. People are finding your accounts." Lily looked at her phone with something approaching horror. Hundreds of messages, thousands of followers she'd never had before. Her face was everywhere. The crying girl in the wheelchair, the victim everyone wanted to save. "I can't do this." Her voice cracked. "I can't be a symbol. I'm just a person." "You're not just anything." Ruth had appeared beside her, a cup of coffee in her weathered hands. "You're a young woman who stood up to cruelty when everyone else stayed silent. That means something." "I didn't stand up. I sat there and cried." "You spoke." Ruth's voice was firm. "I watched the video. When that boy came back to apologize, you told him the truth. You said he didn't have the right. It wasn't enough. It was everything." Ruth crouched beside Lily's wheelchair, bringing herself to eye level. "Do you know how many people go through their whole lives never saying what you said, never standing in front of their tormentors and refusing to be diminished?" Lily's tears spilled over. "I was terrified." Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's speaking truth when your voice shakes. Ruth squeezed her hand. "You've got thunder in your heart, girl. Just like your mama. It's time you stopped apologizing for the noise." Hawk's phone rang. He glanced at the screen. Frowned. "It's the sheriff." He stepped away to answer. Lily watched his face change as he listened. From cautious to surprised to something that might have been satisfaction. "Understood. We'll be there in 2 hours." He hung up. "What is it?" Raven asked. "Senator Mercer just got arrested." The words hung in the air like a thunderclap. Arrested? Lily couldn't process it. "For what? The Houston crew I mentioned. The people he owes money to. Turns out they're connected to some very serious federal investigations. When those videos went viral, they got spooked. Started cooperating with the FBI to protect themselves." Hawk almost smiled. "Mercer is being charged with money laundering fraud, and about a dozen campaign finance violations. His assets are frozen. His house is being searched. What about Brandon? The university revoked his admission 2 hours ago. His girlfriend's father, big oil money, very image-conscious, just released a statement condemning his behavior and ending their relationship. Lily should have felt triumphant. She had fantasized about consequences for people like Brandon her whole life. Instead, she felt hollow. "This doesn't fix anything," she said quietly. Hawk's expression softened. "No, it doesn't. But it's a start. What happens now? Now you have a choice." Hawk sat down across from her. "The sheriff called because reporters are gathering in Ridgefield. They want to talk to you. Tell your story. Make you the face of this whole thing." "I don't want to be a face." "I know. And you don't have to be. We can leave right now. Ride to another state. Disappear until this blows over." Hawk leaned forward. "But I need you to think about something first." "What?" "The people in that diner. The ones who watched and did nothing. They're not evil. They're scared. They've been living under Mercer's thumb for years, afraid to speak up, afraid to lose what little they have." He paused. "You going back? Telling your story. It's not about revenge. It's about showing them that it's possible to stand up, that the fear doesn't have to win." Lily looked at her hands, the same hands that had gripped her mother's as she died, the same hands that had clawed across a dirty floor to collect scattered money while strangers laughed. What would she do? Lily's voice was barely a whisper. "My mother. What would Margaret do?" Hawk's eyes glistened. "She would ride back into that town like a queen returning to her kingdom. She would stand in front of everyone who ever dismissed her and show them exactly who they'd been wrong about." He took her hand. "But you're not Maggie. You get to choose your own path. Whatever you decide, we'll support you." Lily closed her eyes. She saw her mother's face in that final moment. The smile. The words. "I love you, baby girl. Close your eyes." But Lily hadn't closed her eyes. She had watched. She had remembered. And maybe that was the point. "I'll go back." Hawk's grip tightened. "You're sure?" "No." Lily opened her eyes. "But I've spent 3 years hiding from everything. Hiding from the accident. Hiding from my father. Hiding from myself." She sat up straighter. "I'm tired of hiding." The ride back to Ridgefield felt different. Lily sat in the sidecar watching the same flat Texas landscape scroll past, but everything had changed. She wasn't running anymore. She was returning. They hit the town limits just as the sun began to set. News vans lined Main Street. Reporters clutched microphones. Cameramen jockeyed for position. A crowd had gathered outside the Crossroads Diner larger than Lily had ever seen in this sleepy town. And standing at the front of that crowd, waiting, was her father. Tom looked different. His clothes were clean, his hair was combed, and when the motorcycles pulled up when Lily emerged from the sidecar, his eyes were clear. Sober. For the first time in 3 years, her father was sober. "Lily." His voice cracked on her name. "I wasn't sure you'd come back." "Neither was I." They stared at each other across 3 years of silence, 3 years of blame, 3 years of a grief so heavy it had crushed them both. Tom took a step forward, then another. "I went to a meeting," and the words came out rough, unpracticed. "While you were gone, AA, first one in my life." Lily's breath caught. "Dad, I'm not fixed. I know that. One meeting doesn't undo 3 years of—" He stopped, swallowed hard. "Of failing you, of blaming you, of being too much of a coward to face what happened." The crowd had gone quiet. Even the reporters had stopped talking, sensing something more important than any story. "But I want to try. Tom's voice broke. If you'll let me. I want to try to be the father Maggie would have wanted you to have. Lily felt something crack open inside her chest. I wanted pancakes. Tom blinked, confused. What? This morning, I came to the diner because I wanted pancakes. Mom's pancakes. The only connection I had left to her. Lily's voice steadied. And I got humiliated, degraded, treated like I was less than human. Tom flinched. But that's not what broke me. You know what broke me. He shook his head. The silence. Everyone watching and doing nothing. Everyone deciding that my dignity wasn't worth their discomfort. She wheeled herself closer to him. That's what you've been doing for 3 years, Dad. Watching me suffer in silence. Because dealing with it was too hard. I know. Tears streamed down Tom's face. I know. And I'm so sorry. I don't need sorry. Lily's voice rose. I need you present. I need you here. I need you to stop drowning in a bottle and actually be my father. I want to be. I swear to God I want to be. Then prove it. Lily held his gaze. Not with words, not with promises, with action, every single day, starting now. Tom nodded, unable to speak. Hawk stepped forward, positioning himself beside Lily. She's not alone anymore, Tom. Whatever happens next, she's got family standing with her. Tom looked at the man he'd blamed for taking his wife away. The man who represented everything he'd tried to make Margaret forget. I know. Tom's voice was quiet. And I'm grateful, even if I don't know how to say it. The two men stood in silence for a moment. Not reconciled, that would take time if it ever came, but no longer enemies. A reporter broke through the moment. Miss Carter, can you tell us what happened in the diner? More voices joined in. A cacophony of questions. Cameras flashed. Microphones thrust forward. Lily felt the old panic rising, the urge to disappear, to shrink, to make herself as small as possible. Then she felt Raven's hand on her shoulder, Ruth's presence behind her, Hawk's solid form at her side. You don't have to do this, Hawk murmured. Say the word, and we're gone. Lily looked at the crowd, the reporters, the townspeople who had gathered to watch, and she saw something she hadn't expected. Shame. On their faces. In their eyes. The dawning recognition of what they had allowed to happen by staying silent. No, Lily said. I need to do this. She wheeled herself forward, positioning herself in front of the cameras. The crowd fell silent. My name is Lily Carter. Her voice was quiet but steady. 3 years ago, my mother died in a car accident. She threw herself over me and took the impact that was meant for both of us. She saved my life. And lost her own. She paused, gathering herself. Since that day, I've been told in words and in silence that I shouldn't have survived. That I'm a burden, that my existence makes other people uncomfortable. This morning in that diner behind me, I was humiliated by a young man who thought his money made him untouchable. And while I crawled on the floor picking up my own money, not one person stood up to help me. Her eyes found faces in the crowd. Pastor Mitchell. Deputy Wilson. The woman who had spoken up and then backed down. I don't blame you. The words came out softer than she expected. I understand fear. I've lived in fear for 3 years. Fear of being seen. Fear of taking up space. Fear of existing in a world that keeps telling me I don't belong. She straightened in her chair. But here's what I've learned today. You don't have the right, none of you. Nobody has the right to decide who deserves dignity and who doesn't. Nobody has the right to stay silent when cruelty happens in front of them. And nobody has the right to make another person feel worthless for surviving. The crowd was utterly still. I'm not a symbol. I'm not a cause. I'm just a girl who wanted pancakes. Lily's voice cracked, but held. But if my story can remind even one person to speak up when they see injustice, to stand with the vulnerable instead of looking away, then maybe something good can come from the worst day of my life. She turned to look at the diner. My mother used to bring me here every Sunday. She'd order the short stack with extra butter and tell me stories about when she was young. I didn't know then that she was leaving out the most important parts. She looked at Hawk. I found out today that my mother had a whole life before me, a family she loved, a freedom she gave up because she thought I deserved something better. Lily's voice broke. She was wrong about what better means. But she was right about one thing I'm worth fighting for. Every person in a wheelchair. Every person who's different. Every person who's ever been made to feel small. We're all worth fighting for. She faced the cameras one final time. I'm done hiding. I'm done apologizing for surviving. And I'm done letting fear decide who I get to be. Silence. Then from somewhere in the crowd, a single pair of hands began to clap. Rosa, the waitress who had kept Lily's mother's secret for 20 years, who had called Hawk when no one else would help. Another pair joined. Then another. The applause spread like wildfire, sweeping through the crowd until the whole street was thundering with it. People who had watched in silence this morning were now on their feet, tears streaming down their faces, cheering for the girl they had failed to protect. Lily didn't cry. She had cried enough. Instead, she turned to find her father watching her with an expression she barely recognized. Pride. Pure, uncomplicated pride. Your mother would be so proud of you, he whispered. I know. Lily managed a small smile. I think I'm finally starting to be proud of myself. Hawk moved beside her, his voice low. What you just did took more courage than anything I've ever seen. It wasn't courage. Lily shook her head. It was exhaustion. I'm just too tired to be afraid anymore. That's what courage is. Hawk's eyes held hers, being too tired to let fear win. A commotion near the edge of the crowd drew their attention. Deputy Wilson was pushing through, his face red with emotion. Miss Carter. He stopped in front of her wheelchair, removing his hat. I owe you an apology. Lily waited. This morning I sat there and watched, told myself it wasn't my place to interfere. His voice shook. I've been telling myself that for 15 years. Every time someone with power did something wrong, I looked away, told myself I was just doing my job. He met her eyes. But that's not true. The truth is I was a coward, and I'm sorry. Lily studied him for a long moment. This man who had the power to help and chose not to, who wore a badge that was supposed to mean something. Sorry doesn't undo what happened. I know, but it's a start. Lily extended her hand. Do better. That's all any of us can do. Wilson shook her hand, his grip firm. I will. I swear I will. Pastor Mitchell approached next. His face was pale, his hands clasped in front of him like he was praying. Miss Carter, Let me guess. Lily's voice was tired, but not unkind. You're sorry you didn't speak up. You were afraid. You'll do better next time. The pastor flinched. I deserve that. You deserve worse. Lily's eyes hardened. You preach about loving your neighbor every Sunday. You tell people to stand up for what's right. And then you sat 3 booths away while a disabled girl got tormented, and you didn't say a single word. I know. His voice broke. I've failed everything I claim to believe in. Yes, you have. Lily let the words land. The question is what you're going to do about it. She didn't wait for his answer. She had given enough grace for one day. The crowd began to disperse slowly, people drifting away in small groups, their conversations hushed and reflective. Lily could feel the shift in the air. Something had changed in Ridgefield today, something that couldn't be unchanged. Her phone buzzed again. She glanced at it. Froze. A text from an unknown number. You think this is over? This is just beginning. You've made powerful enemies today, little cripple girl. And we don't forget. Hawk noticed her expression. What is it? Lily showed him the screen. His jaw tightened. Mercer's people. What does this mean? It means they're scared. Scared people do stupid things. Hawk took her phone, forwarding the message to someone. I'm sending this to some friends who handle these situations. Handle them how? Hawk's smile didn't reach his eyes. You don't need to worry about that. Hawk, trust me. His voice softened. I spent 20 years watching from a distance while my sister built a life without me. I won't make that mistake again. Nobody threatens my family. Lily should have been frightened. Instead, she felt something else entirely. Safe. For the first time in 3 years, she felt truly safe. Ruth appeared beside them, her expression serious. We should get her somewhere secure for the night, just until we know what we're dealing with. Agreed. Hawk turned to Lily. You can stay at the clubhouse, or if you prefer, we can set up protection at your house. Lily looked at her father. Tom stood alone at the edge of the dispersing crowd. He looked lost. Small. Like a man who had just realized how much of his life he had wasted. I want to go home. Hawk nodded. We'll have people watching the house. You won't even know they're there. Thank you. Lily hesitated. For everything. I don't know how to repay. Your family. Hawk's voice was gruff. Family doesn't keep score. He leaned down and kissed her forehead, a gesture so unexpectedly tender that Lily's eyes filled with tears. Your mama would be proud of you today. So proud she'd be fit to burst. Lily couldn't speak. She just nodded. Hawk straightened all business again. Raven, you're on first watch. Ruth, coordinate with the others. I've got some calls to make. The bikers began to move with practiced efficiency, a well-oiled machine responding to commands. Within minutes, a security perimeter had been established around Lily's house without any visible presence. Tom approached hesitantly. Would it be okay if I drove you home? Lily looked at her father. At the man who had failed her in every way that mattered. At the man who was trying finally to do better. Okay. Tom's face lit up with a hope so raw it almost hurt to witness. Thank you. Thank you, Lily. Don't thank me yet. She wheeled herself toward his truck. This doesn't mean I've forgiven you. It means I'm giving you a chance to earn forgiveness. That's more than I deserve? Yes, it is. Tom helped her transfer into the truck, folding her wheelchair and placing it in the back with careful attention. It was a small thing, but Lily noticed. He was trying. They drove in silence for several minutes. The streets of Ridgefield passed by outside the window, familiar landmarks taking on new meaning after everything that had happened. Finally, Tom spoke. The meeting I went to. The AA meeting. His hands tightened on the steering wheel. They made me say it out loud. What I've been running from. Lily waited. I said, my name is Tom, and I'm an alcoholic. And I've spent 3 years destroying my relationship with my daughter because I couldn't face my own grief. His voice cracked. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. But when I said it out loud, something shifted. Like I'd been carrying this weight for so long I forgot what it felt like to stand up straight. Lily watched his profile in the fading light. One meeting doesn't fix things, Dad. I know. You're going to want to drink again. You're going to have bad days. Days when you look at me and still see her and it's going to hurt so much you'll want to crawl back into that bottle. I know. His voice was barely a whisper. And when that happens, you need to choose. Every single time. Choose to stay present. Choose to deal with the pain instead of drowning it. Lily's voice hardened. Because I can't do this again. I can't watch you disappear into yourself while I'm standing right here needing you. Tom pulled the truck to a stop in front of their house. He sat for a moment, engine idling, staring at the home where his wife had lived, and laughed and dreamed of a different life. I found something. His voice was strange. While you were gone, I was cleaning out the attic trying to, I don't know, do something useful, and I found a box. Lily's heart stuttered. What kind of box? Maggie's. Tom turned to face her, his eyes wet. Things she kept hidden. Letters, photos, a journal. Lily couldn't breathe. She wrote about you. Every entry, every page, about how much she loved you, how proud she was of you, how she wished she could tell you the truth about who she was, but she was afraid you'd be ashamed of her. Tears streamed down Lily's face. She wasn't ashamed of her past. She was afraid you would be. She spent 18 years hiding the best parts of herself because she thought you deserved a normal mother. Tom's voice broke completely. And now she's gone. And you'll never know how much I know. Lily reached across the seat and took her father's hand. I know now. Hawk told me. Rosa told me. Ruth told me. I know who she really was. Tom looked at their joined hands like he'd never seen anything so miraculous. I wish I'd let her be herself. The words came out in a rush. I wish I hadn't been so obsessed with appearances, with respectability. I wish I'd loved her for who she was instead of who I wanted her to be. She knew. Lily squeezed his fingers. She chose you anyway. That means something. They sat in silence as the sun finished setting. The first stars began to appear in the Texas sky. We should go inside, Lily finally said. It's been a long day. Yeah, Tom wiped his eyes. Yeah, it has. He came around to help her with the wheelchair, and together they made their way up the ramp he'd installed 3 years ago and never once acknowledged. At the front door, Lily paused. Dad, yeah. I don't forgive you yet, but I think maybe someday I could. Tom's breath caught. That's enough. That's more than enough. He opened the door, and Lily wheeled herself inside. Home. For the first time in 3 years, it actually felt like one. Lily couldn't sleep. She lay in her bed staring at the ceiling, the events of the day replaying in her mind like a film she couldn't pause. The diner. The humiliation. Hawk's arrival. Her mother's secret life. The speech she'd given in front of cameras she never wanted to face. And the text message. You've made powerful enemies today, little cripple girl. Every creak of the old house made her heart jump. Every shadow seemed threatening. Even knowing that Raven and the others were watching outside, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was coming. At 2 a.m, she gave up on sleep entirely. She transferred herself to her wheelchair and rolled quietly down the hallway. A light was on in the kitchen. Her father sat at the table, a cup of coffee in his hands, staring at nothing. Can't sleep either. Lily's voice was soft. Tom startled, then relaxed when he saw her. Not even close. She wheeled herself to the table. For a moment, neither of them spoke. 3 years of silence had built walls between them, and tearing them down would take more than one conversation. "I keep thinking about that box," Lily finally said. "The one you found in the attic." Tom nodded slowly. "It's in my room. I wasn't sure if you'd want to see it tonight." "I want to see it." And he rose without argument and disappeared down the hall. When he returned, he carried a worn cardboard box, the corners soft with age. He set it on the table between them like an offering. Lily's hands trembled as she lifted the lid. The first thing she saw was a photograph. Her mother, young and wild, sitting on the back of a motorcycle, with her arms wrapped around a younger Hawk. Both of them were laughing, their faces bright with joy. "I never saw her smile like that, not once in my whole life." "I know." Tom's voice was rough. She set the photo aside and pulled out a leather journal. Its pages yellowed with time. Her mother's handwriting filled every line, tight, careful script that Lily recognized from birthday cards and permission slips. She opened to a random page and began to read. "Lily took her first steps today. Tom was at work, so it was just the two of us. She grabbed onto my fingers and just walked, like it was the most natural thing in the world. I cried for an hour afterward. Not because I was happy, though I was, but because I couldn't call anyone to share it. Hawk would have been so proud. He always said I'd be a good mother. I wish I could tell him he was right." Lily's tears fell onto the page. "She wanted to tell you about us." Hawk's voice came from the kitchen doorway. Lily hadn't heard him come in. "Every day she wanted to pick up the phone and call, but she was afraid." "Afraid of what?" Lily looked up. "Afraid I'd love her less. Afraid you'd love her differently." Hawk crossed to the table, pulled out a chair. She'd built this whole identity around being the perfect wife, the perfect mother. She thought if you knew about her past, you'd see her as a fraud. "That's ridiculous." "Is it?" Hawk's eyes were knowing. "You've been hiding parts of yourself for 3 years, pretending to be fine when you weren't, shrinking yourself to make other people comfortable." He paused. "You learned that from her." The words hit Lily like a physical blow. She looked at the journal in her hands, at the photos scattered across the table, at the life her mother had buried so deep that even her own daughter never knew it existed. She was trying to protect me. She was trying to protect herself. Hawk's voice was gentle but honest. From the pain of her own choices. From the question of whether she'd made the right ones. Lily turned another page in the journal. "Lily's 15th birthday. I watched her open presents and laugh with her friends, and all I could think about was my 15th birthday. Hawk took me to a bar outside Houston, totally illegal, but nobody cared back then and taught me to play pool. I won $20 off a trucker twice my size. It was the happiest night of my life. I want Lily to have happy memories too, but I want them to be different from mine. Safer, more respectable. Is that wrong? Am I erasing myself to give her something better?" Lily closed the journal. She wasn't happy. The realization was devastating. All those years, all that effort to be normal, and she wasn't happy. "She was happy with you." Tom's voice was raw. "You were the one thing she never questioned, the one choice she never regretted." "How do you know that?" Tom reached into the box and pulled out an envelope. "Because she wrote you a letter. I found it this morning. It's dated 2 days before the accident." Lily's heart stopped. "She never sent it. I don't know if she was ever going to send it, but—" Tom's hands shook as he held out the envelope. "It's yours." Lily took it like it was made of glass. Her name was written on the front in her mother's careful script. Lily Marie Carter. The handwriting of a woman who was still alive, who still had tomorrow to look forward to. I can't read this in front of you. Her voice was barely audible. I need to be alone. Both men nodded. Hawk rose first, squeezing Lily's shoulder as he passed. Tom lingered for a moment. Whatever's in there, whatever she said, remember that she loved you more than anything in this world. His voice cracked. That's the one thing I know for certain. He left. And Lily was alone with her mother's final words. Her hands trembled as she opened the envelope. My darling Lily, I don't know if I'll ever give you this letter. I don't know if I have the courage, but I need to write it because there are things I should have told you years ago, and I'm afraid I'm running out of time. I wasn't always the person you know. Before your father. Before you, I was someone else entirely. Someone wild and free and terrified of becoming ordinary. I rode motorcycles with my brother. I sang in bars. I did things I'm not proud of and things I'm very proud of. And most of the time I couldn't tell the difference. Then I met your father. And everything changed. He offered me a different life. A respectable life. A life where nobody would look at me and see my mother's failures, my brother's choices, my own wild heart. I thought that's what I wanted. I thought if I could just be normal enough, good enough, quiet enough, I could outrun everything I came from. I was wrong. You can't outrun yourself, Lily. You can only bury yourself so deep that you forget who you really are. And that's what I did. For 18 years I buried the best parts of myself because I was afraid they wouldn't fit into the life I'd chosen. But here's what I've learned. The best parts of ourselves are the ones we're most afraid to show. The wild parts. The broken parts. The parts that don't fit into neat little boxes. You have those parts too. I see them in you every day. The way you fight to be independent. The way you refuse to let your wheelchair define you. The way you look at the world like it owes you nothing and you're determined to take what you need anyway. That's not me in you, Lily. That's not your father. That's your grandmother. That's your Uncle Hawk. That's generations of people who refused to be diminished by circumstance. I should have told you about them. I should have let you know where you come from. I should have given you the whole story instead of the sanitized version I thought you needed. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. If you're reading this, it means I finally found the courage to give it to you. Or maybe something happened, and you found it on your own. Either way, I need you to know I have never been prouder of anyone than I am of you. Every day you show me what real strength looks like. Not the strength to hide who you are, I've mastered that, and it's worthless. But the strength to keep going when the world tells you to give up. You have thunder in your heart, baby girl. Don't ever let anyone convince you to be quiet. I love you to the moon and back around the stars and home again. Mom. Lily read the letter 3 times. Then she put her head down on the table and sobbed. She cried for the mother she'd lost, for the woman she'd never really known. For the years of hiding and pretending and trying to be small enough to disappear. She cried until there was nothing left. When she finally lifted her head, the first light of dawn was creeping through the windows. She felt hollow, emptied out. But underneath the grief, something else was emerging. Clarity. Her mother had spent 18 years hiding who she really was. And in the end, it hadn't mattered. The accident had come anyway. The loss had happened regardless. All that hiding, all that pretending, it hadn't protected anyone from anything. Lily looked down at her useless legs, at the wheelchair that had defined her for 3 years, at the hands that had clawed across a dirty floor to pick up scattered money. She was done hiding. A knock at the front door made her jump. She wheeled herself to answer it, expecting Hawk or Raven. Instead, she found Brandon Mercer standing on the porch. He looked nothing like the swaggering bully from the diner. His clothes were rumpled, his eyes were red, his shoulders slumped like he was carrying a weight he couldn't bear. "What the hell are you doing here?" Lily's voice was ice. "I know." Brandon's voice cracked. "I know I don't have any right. But I need to say something. We've heard enough from you." Raven had appeared from the shadows, her hand resting on her belt. "Get out before we make you." "Please." The word came out broken. "Just give me 1 minute. 1 minute, and then I'll leave. I swear." Lily surprised everyone, including herself. "Let him talk." Raven turned to her, disbelief on her face. "Lily, he came alone. He's not threatening anyone. The least we can do is hear what he has to say." The room remained tense, but no one moved to stop Brandon as he stepped forward. He stopped 10 feet from Lily's wheelchair, unable to come closer. "I watched the video." His voice was barely audible. "The one from the diner." Lily's voice was flat. "I watched it maybe 50 times last night." "Good for you. Enjoy the show." "No." Brandon's face crumpled. I couldn't recognize myself. That person on the screen, laughing while you crawled on the floor. I kept thinking there must be some mistake. That couldn't be me." "It was you." Lily's voice was steady. "Every word, every laugh, every moment." "I know." Tears streamed down his face. "I know it was me. And I don't understand how I became that person. I don't understand how I could do something so cruel and not even realize it was wrong." He fell to his knees. "I'm not here to ask for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I know I don't deserve it." His voice broke completely. "I'm here because I need you to know that I see it now. I see what I did. And I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to be better." Lily watched him kneeling on her porch. This boy who had humiliated her, who had tried to break her spirit. She should have felt triumphant, vindicated. Instead, she felt tired. "Get up." Brandon looked at her confused. "I said get up. You don't get to kneel to me like I'm some kind of saint. I'm not your absolution." He rose shakily to his feet. "You want to be better, then be better. Stop talking about it and actually do something." Lily wheeled herself closer. "Your father's out there right now trying to destroy everyone who ever spoke against him. He's going to ruin lives, Brandon. Innocent lives. And you're the only person who can stop him." "I can't go against my own father." "Then you haven't changed at all." The words hung between them like a challenge. Brandon's face twisted with anguish. "You don't understand. He's all I have. My mother left when I was 8. He's the only family Family isn't just blood." Lily gestured at the room. "Family is the people who stand by you when it costs them something. Family is choosing to do the right thing even when it's hard." She wheeled herself even closer. "Your father taught you that money and power make you untouchable. That you can treat people however you want because they can't fight back. But he was wrong, Brandon. Everyone can fight back. And when enough people do, even the most powerful men fall." Brandon's eyes darted around the room. At Hawk standing silently in the doorway. At Raven still watching him with suspicion. At Lily broken but unbowed. "What do you want me to do? Tell the truth." Lily's voice hardened. "About what you've seen. What you know. What your father has done to maintain his power. He'll destroy me. Maybe. Or maybe you'll finally become someone worth being." The room was silent. Brandon stood at a crossroads. His whole life had led to this point. Every privilege, every cruelty, every choice that had been made for him, and every choice he'd made himself. He could walk out that door and back to his father's protection, or he could step into the unknown. "There's a safe." His voice was barely a whisper. "In my father's study. He thinks I don't know the combination, but I watched him open it once." Raven stepped forward. "What's in it? Documents. Records of payments he's made, people he's bribed, evidence of things that—" Brandon swallowed hard. Things that could put him away for a very long time. Hawk's eyes narrowed. Why should we believe you? This could be a trap. It's not. Brandon looked at Lily. I know you have no reason to trust me. I know what I've done. But I'm telling the truth. Lily studied his face, the terror in his eyes, the trembling of his hands. He was telling the truth. She was certain of it. Okay, she said. Hawk's voice was sharp. Lily, we can't just, I believe him. She kept her eyes on Brandon. And I think he needs to do this. Not for us, for himself. Brandon's breath caught. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. If you're lying, if this is some kind of setup. It's not. I swear on my mother's life. It's not. Lily nodded slowly. Then let's finish this. The plan came together quickly. Brandon would return home like nothing had happened. He would access the safe while his father was occupied with legal preparations. Hawk would have people waiting nearby to receive whatever documents Brandon could retrieve. It was risky. If Senator Mercer discovered what his son was doing, there was no telling how he'd react. But it was also their best chance. As Brandon prepared to leave, Lily called him back. One more thing. He turned fear flickering across his face. That girl, the one who worked at your father's car dealership, the one you cornered in the break room. Brandon's face went pale. Find her. Apologize. Really apologize. Not the kind you gave me in the diner. Her voice softened slightly. And then ask her what you can do to make it right. I don't know if she'll... It doesn't matter if she accepts. It matters that you try. Lily's eyes held his. You can't undo what you've done, but you can decide who you're going to be from this moment forward. Brandon nodded once, then walked out the door. The room remained silent for a long moment after he left. You really think he'll come through? Raven asked. Lily looked at her mother's letter still clutched in her hand. I think people can change. I think they can surprise you. She met Raven's eyes. My mother spent 18 years hiding who she really was. But in the end, when it mattered most, she was exactly who she always was inside. She tucked the letter into her pocket. Maybe Brandon has someone like that buried under all that privilege and cruelty. Maybe that's who he's becoming. The waiting was the hardest part. Lily sat in her living room, surrounded by people who had trusted her enough to share their stories. Hawk paced by the window. Raven monitored her phone for updates. Tom hovered nearby, looking like he wanted to help, but didn't know how. 1 hour passed. Then 2. The sun was setting when Hawk's phone finally buzzed. He answered, listened, then hung up without a word. Well, Lily couldn't take the suspense. Hawk turned to face the room. His expression was unreadable. Brandon came through. He got everything. A murmur ran through the assembled group. Documents, records, recordings his father didn't even know existed. Hawk's voice dropped. There's enough evidence to bring down half the county government. Bribery, fraud, witness tampering. He paused. Even a connection to the drunk driver who killed your mother. Lily's heart stopped. What? Carl Henderson, the man who crossed the center line. His prior DUIs were dismissed because Senator Mercer made some phone calls. Hawk's voice was heavy. If Henderson had been in jail where he belonged, your mother would still be alive. The room spun. Lily had always known the accident was caused by a drunk driver, but she'd never known there was someone responsible for putting that driver back on the road. Someone who could have prevented it. Mercer. The name came out like poison. Richard Mercer killed my mother. Not directly, but yes. Hawk crouched beside her wheelchair. "I'm sorry. I know this doesn't make anything easier." "No." Lily's voice hardened. "It doesn't make it easier. It makes it clearer." She looked around the room. "We're not just fighting for justice anymore. We're fighting for everyone he's ever hurt, everyone he's ever silenced, everyone who's lost someone because he decided the rules didn't apply to him." She turned to Hawk. "What do we do now?" "Now we go public, all of it. The documents, the testimonies, everything." Hawk's eyes gleamed. "Mercer wanted a press conference. We'll give him one he'll never forget." Lily nodded. "Then let's finish this." The morning of the press conference arrived with a sky the color of bruised steel. Lily hadn't slept. None of them had. The night had been consumed with preparation, organizing documents, coordinating testimonies, making sure every piece of evidence was in order. Now, as she sat in her wheelchair outside the Ridgefield County Courthouse, she felt the weight of everything that had led to this moment. Hawk appeared beside her. "You ready?" "No." Lily's voice was honest. "But I don't think I'll ever be ready, so we might as well do it anyway." He smiled a rare expression on his weathered face. That's exactly what Maggie would have said. The crowd gathering around the courthouse was larger than Lily had expected. News vans from Houston, Dallas, even Austin. Reporters jockeyed for position. Camera crews set up their equipment. And mixed among the media, the people of Ridgefield. Watching, waiting, uncertain whose side they would choose. Senator Mercer had scheduled his press conference for 10 o'clock. He would stand on those courthouse steps and tell the world that he was the victim, that Lily and the Iron Wolves had conspired against him, that everything they'd said was lies. But Lily would speak first. At 9:45, she wheeled herself to the front of the crowd. The microphones swung toward her like flowers following the sun. "My name is Lily Carter." Her voice carried across the square, amplified by the sudden silence. 3 days ago, I went to a diner for breakfast. I wanted pancakes, the kind my mother used to order before she was killed by a drunk driver 3 years ago. She paused, letting the words settle. Instead of pancakes, I got humiliated. A young man named Brandon Mercer dumped my purse on the floor, stepped on my money, and laughed while I crawled to pick it up. He called me a cripple. He told me I shouldn't bother leaving my house, and not a single person in that diner stood up to help me. The crowd stirred. Some faces showed recognition they had seen the videos. Others looked uncomfortable, perhaps recognizing themselves in the bystanders who had done nothing. "I'm not here to talk about what happened to me." Lily's voice steadied. "I'm here because I'm not alone." She gestured behind her. 27 people stepped forward. The bank teller, the county worker, the elderly couple, the bullied teenager. All of them carrying their own stories, their own evidence, their own courage. These are the people Senator Richard Mercer has silenced. These are the victims of a man who believed his money and power made him untouchable. They've been afraid to speak for years, afraid of losing their jobs, their homes, their families. Her voice hardened. But they're not afraid anymore. One by one, they told their stories. The young woman from the bank described how Mercer had threatened to destroy her family when she noticed irregularities in his accounts. The county worker explained how he'd been passed over for promotions for a decade because he'd questioned the senator's conduct. The elderly couple detailed how their property had been seized through manipulated legal proceedings. And then the bullied teenager stepped forward. His name was Marcus. His voice shook as he spoke. Brandon Mercer made my life hell for 4 years. He and his friends beat me up behind the gym, stole my belongings, spread rumors that destroyed my reputation. And when I tried to report it, the principal told me boys will be boys. Marcus looked directly at the cameras. I tried to kill myself last year, swallowed a bottle of pills and hoped I wouldn't wake up. His voice cracked. I survived, obviously, but I've never told anyone why I did it, because I was ashamed, because I thought it was my fault for not being strong enough to handle it. He turned to Lily. When I saw you on that video, when I saw you stand up and tell Brandon he didn't have the right, something inside me changed. I realized I'd been blaming myself for things that were never my fault. Tears streamed down his face. So thank you. Thank you for giving me permission to tell my story. The crowd was utterly silent. Lily felt her own tears threatening to fall, but she held them back. There would be time for tears later. Right now she had a job to finish. Senator Mercer believes he can spin his way out of this. He believes that if he stands up there and lies confidently enough, people will believe him over us. She pulled out a folder, the documents Brandon had retrieved from his father's safe. He's wrong. She held up the first document. This is a record of payments Senator Mercer made to Judge Harrison to ensure favorable rulings in land disputes. She held up another. This is evidence that he bribed county officials to look the other way on building code violations that put workers' lives at risk. Another document. This is proof that he made phone calls to get DUI charges dismissed for Carl Henderson, the man who would later kill my mother. The crowd erupted. Reporters shouted questions. Cameras flashed. Lily raised her hand. And somehow, impossibly, the noise subsided. Senator Mercer didn't pull the trigger that killed my mother, but he made sure the gun was loaded. He put a drunk driver back on the road because it was politically convenient. And because of that decision, my mother threw herself over me and died so I could live. Her voice shook, but held steady. I've spent 3 years blaming myself for surviving. 3 years apologizing for existing. 3 years letting people like Brandon Mercer make me feel worthless because I sit instead of stand. She looked directly into the nearest camera. That ends today. A commotion at the edge of the crowd. Senator Richard Mercer was pushing his way toward the courthouse steps, his face purple with rage. His lawyers flanked him, trying to hold him back, but he shook them off. This is slander, his voice boomed across the square. This is a conspiracy orchestrated by criminals and malcontents. Then explain the documents. Lily's voice cut through his bluster. Explain the payments. Explain the recordings. Fabricated. All of it. Your own son provided them. The word stopped Mercer cold. What? Brandon came to us. Lily watched the color drain from the senator's face. He told us where to find the evidence. He helped us gather it. You're lying. Am I? Lily gestured, and Brandon stepped out from behind the crowd. Father and son stared at each other across 10 feet of Texas soil. Chad. Mercer's voice was dangerous. What have you done? The right thing. Brandon's voice trembled, but didn't break. For the first time in my life, I did the right thing. You ungrateful little, you taught me that money makes you untouchable. That power means you can do whatever you want to whoever you want. Brandon's tears fell freely now. But you were wrong. You can't escape consequences forever, and I won't help you try anymore. Mercer lunged toward his son. Hawk moved faster. He stepped between them, his massive frame blocking the senator's path. Don't. The single word carried more threat than any shouted curse. Mercer stopped, chest-heaving, fists clenched. For a moment, Lily thought he might try to fight his way through. Instead, something in him seemed to collapse. You've destroyed everything. His voice was hollow. Everything I built. Everything I worked for. No. Lily wheeled herself forward. You destroyed it yourself. Every bribe, every threat, every person you crushed to get what you wanted. Those were your choices. We're just making sure you finally face them. Sheriff Davis appeared at the edge of the crowd, accompanied by 2 FBI agents. Their expressions were grim. Richard Mercer. The sheriff's voice carried across the square. You're under arrest. Mercer's lawyers surged forward, protests and objections tumbling over each other. But the FBI agents moved through them like water through a sieve. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. Lily watched as handcuffs clicked around Senator Mercer's wrists. The man who had terrorized this town for decades, who had enabled the drunk driver who killed her mother, who had raised a son to believe cruelty was power. He looked smaller somehow. Diminished. This isn't over. Mercer's eyes found Lily as they led him away. You think you've won, but you haven't. I have friends, resources. This is just the beginning. Maybe. Lily held his gaze. But it's the beginning of the end for you. The reporters descended like vultures. Questions flew from every direction. Microphones thrust toward Lily's face. Miss Carter, how does it feel to bring down the most powerful man in the county? Were you scared to confront Senator Mercer? What's next for you? Lily looked at the chaos around her. The cameras, the crowds, the reporters hungry for the next soundbite. I don't want to be famous. Her voice cut through the noise. I don't want to be a symbol or a spokesperson or whatever else you're hoping to make me into. The questions stopped. Everyone listened. I'm just a girl who wanted pancakes. A girl who was taught by the worst moment of her life that she didn't have to stay silent, that her voice mattered even when it shook. She looked at the people gathered behind her, at Hawk and Raven and Ruth, at the witnesses who had finally found the courage to speak, at Brandon standing apart, uncertain of where he belonged now. If there's anything I want people to take from this, it's this. You don't have to be brave to stand up. You just have to be tired enough of being afraid. The crowd began to thin as the news vans prepared to leave, carrying the story of Ridgefield to every corner of the country. Lily found herself alone with Hawk for the first time all morning. You did good, little sister. I feel like I'm going to throw up. Hawk laughed, a genuine sound that transformed his weathered face. That's normal. Courage doesn't mean you're not scared. It means you do what's right anyway. Is it over? The hard part, maybe. Hawk was quiet for a moment. Mercer will fight the charges, but with the evidence we have, he's not getting out of this. What happens to Brandon? Hawk's expression grew complicated. That's up to him. He betrayed his own father. Some people will call him a hero. Others will call him a traitor. He'll have to figure out who he wants to be. Lily looked across the square to where Brandon sat alone on a bench, his head in his hands. I'm going to talk to him. You sure that's a good idea? No, but I'm doing it anyway. She wheeled herself across the square. Brandon didn't look up until she was right in front of him. Your father's going to prison. I know. His voice was hollow. How do you feel? Brandon was silent for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was raw. My whole life I thought he was invincible. This titan who could do anything, fix anything, destroy anyone who got in his way. And I wanted to be just like him. He looked up, his eyes red and swollen. But he wasn't invincible, he was just a bully with money. And I was his son, his loyal little soldier, doing exactly what he taught me to do. You can be different. Can I? Brandon's laugh was bitter. I spent 23 years learning how to be him. I don't know how to be anyone else. Lily thought about her mother. About the years Margaret had spent hiding who she really was. trying to become someone different. It took my mother 18 years to realize she couldn't outrun herself, but in the end, when it mattered, she was exactly who she always was: brave, wild, willing to sacrifice everything for someone she loved. She met Brandon's eyes. Maybe you can't change who you've been, but you can choose who you're becoming. Every day, every decision, you get to choose. Brandon stared at her like she was speaking a foreign language. Why are you being kind to me after everything I did, because someone was kind to me when I didn't deserve it? Lily thought of Hawk kneeling beside her in that diner, of Rosa calling for help when no one else would, of her mother throwing herself across her daughter in the final moment of her life. And because holding on to anger is exhausting, I've got better things to do with my energy. She turned her wheelchair to leave, then paused. There's a girl in Houston, Sarah, the one from your father's dealership. She's scared and hurt, and she spent the last year believing she was powerless. Brandon flinched. Find her. Make it right. Not because you want forgiveness, but because it's the right thing to do. She wheeled away before he could respond. Tom was waiting for her at the edge of the square. Her father stood straighter than she'd seen him in years. His eyes were clear, his hands steady. I'm proud of you. The words came out rough, unpracticed. I've never said that before, not once in your whole life, and I should have said it every single day. Lily's throat tightened. Dad, I went to another meeting this morning, third one in a row. I told them about you, about what you were going to do today. Tom's eyes glistened. I told them my daughter was braver than I ever was, that she was standing up to people I spent my whole life bowing down to. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. I found this in your mother's things. I think she was saving it for you. Lily opened the box with trembling hands. Inside, nestled in faded velvet, was a ring. Silver band, small turquoise stone, nothing expensive, but beautiful in its simplicity. It was your grandmother's, Margaret's mother. She wore it until the day she died. Tom's voice was soft. Maggie took it when she left, the one thing she kept from her old life. Lily slipped the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly. She wanted you to have it. Tom's eyes were wet. She wanted you to know where you came from. She just never found the courage to tell you while she was alive. Lily stared at the ring, her grandmother's ring, evidence of a lineage she'd never known existed. Wild women and broken hearts and survivors who refused to stay silent. Thank you. The words were inadequate, but they were all she had. Tom reached across and covered her hand with his. I know I can't make up for the last 3 years. I know saying sorry doesn't undo the damage. His grip tightened. But I want you to know I see you. Really see you. And I'm so proud of the woman you're becoming. Lily's tears finally fell. I didn't become anything. I just stopped trying to disappear. That's everything. Tom's voice broke. That's absolutely everything. Hawk found her an hour later. She sat alone outside the diner, her face turned toward the afternoon sun. Her grandmother's ring caught the light. Beautiful day. First one in a while. Lily didn't open her eyes. Feels like something changed. Something did. Hawk leaned against the wall beside her. This town is never going to be the same. Is that good or bad? Depends who you ask. He was quiet for a moment. The FBI is taking over the investigation. Mercer is going to flip on a lot of people to try to reduce his sentence. There are going to be more arrests, more revelations. It's going to get messy before it gets better. But it will get better. Eventually. Hawk looked down at her. You've started something, Lily, Something bigger than just one corrupt senator or one bullied girl. You've shown people that silence isn't the only option. Lily finally opened her eyes. I didn't do anything special. I just said what I was feeling. That's the most special thing there is. Hawk crouched beside her wheelchair, bringing himself to her level. Most people spend their whole lives swallowing their truth, afraid it'll make them too vulnerable, too visible, too easy to hurt. He touched her cheek gently. Maggie did that. Hid herself away until there was nothing left of the wild girl I grew up with. She thought it was the only way to protect you. But it didn't work. No, it never does. Hawk's eyes glistened. The only thing that really protects us is being seen, being known, letting people love the real version of who we are. Lily thought about her mother's letter, about the years of hiding, about the thunder in her heart that Margaret had passed down to her daughter. I want to visit her grave. Hawk nodded. I was hoping you'd say that. They rode in silence, Lily in the sidecar, Hawk on his Harley, Raven and 3 others flanking them like an honor guard. The cemetery was small, tucked into a hillside at the edge of town. Margaret's grave was in the back corner, shaded by an old oak tree. Hawk helped Lily transfer to a portable wheelchair they'd brought for rough terrain. Together, they made their way between headstones until they stood before a simple marble marker. Margaret Marie Carter. Beloved wife and mother, 1976 to 2023. Lily stared at the dates. 47 years. Her mother had only lived 47 years. I used to come here every week. Lily's voice was barely audible. After the accident, I'd sit here for hours, talking to her, telling her about my day. When did you stop? About a year ago. Lily's hands tightened on her wheelchair. Dad said something one night when he was drunk, about how I was probably happy she was dead, because now I could pretend I was normal. Hawk was silent. But I think I understand now. He wasn't really talking about me. He was talking about himself. He was the one who wanted her to be normal. And when she died being exactly who she really was, he couldn't handle it. Grief makes people cruel. So does fear. Lily reached out and touched the marble headstone. It was warm from the sun. Hi, Mom. It's been a while. Hawk stepped back, giving her privacy. But Lily found she didn't want privacy. She wanted witnesses. I met Uncle Hawk. He told me about who you really were. About the motorcycles, and the bar singing, and the grandmother I never knew existed. Her voice cracked. I wish you'd told me yourself. I wish you'd trusted me with the truth. She paused, collecting herself. But I understand why you didn't. You were trying to protect me from the parts of yourself you were ashamed of. The wild parts. The parts that didn't fit into the life you'd chosen. Lily looked at the ring on her finger. Here's the thing, Mom. Those are the parts I love most. The parts that made you throw yourself over me when the headlights came. The parts that made you willing to die so I could live. Tears streamed down her face, but her voice grew stronger. I'm not going to hide anymore. I'm not going to apologize for surviving. I'm going to be loud and visible and inconvenient, everything you were afraid to be. She straightened in her chair. Because you were right about me. I do have thunder in my heart, and I'm done letting anyone convince me to be quiet. The wind rustled through the oak tree. For a moment, Lily could have sworn she heard her mother's voice singing an old country song about wild hearts and open roads. I love you, Mom, to the moon and back, around the stars, and home again. She sat with the silence for a long moment. Then Hawk appeared beside her, his hand on her shoulder. Ready? Lily took one last look at her mother's grave, at the name carved in marble, at the dates that seemed far too close together. "Yeah, I'm ready." They made their way back to the motorcycles. The sun was setting now, painting the Texas sky in shades of orange and purple. "What happens now?" Lily asked, as Hawk helped her into the sidecar. "Now you live." Hawk climbed onto his Harley. "You go to school, get a job, fall in love, make mistakes, all the things you've been too afraid to do for 3 years. Will I see you again?" Hawk smiled. "Little sister, you're stuck with me now. Family doesn't disappear." The engines roared to life. 19 motorcycles fell into formation around Lily's sidecar. They rode through Ridgefield as the streetlights flickered on. People stopped on sidewalks to watch them pass. Some waved. Others just stared. Lily realized they weren't looking at the bikers anymore. They were looking at her. The girl in the wheelchair. The girl who had stood up to power. The girl who had found her voice and used it to change everything. She sat up straighter in the sidecar. For so long she had wanted to be invisible. To disappear into the background where no one could see her, judge her, hurt her. But invisibility was just another word for hiding. And she was done hiding. They pulled up outside her house. Tom stood on the porch watching. His eyes were clear, his posture straight. He looked like a man trying very hard to be better. Hawk cut his engine and turned to Lily. "One more thing." He reached into his vest and pulled out a leather jacket, black, supple, perfectly sized. "This was your mother's. She wore it the day she decided to leave our life behind. I kept it all these years hoping I'd get to give it back to her someday." Lily took the jacket with trembling hands. "It's yours now, not because you've earned it or proved anything, just because you're family, and family doesn't keep score." Lily ran her fingers over the worn leather, her mother's jacket. Evidence of a life lived boldly, even when that boldness had to be hidden away. "Thank you." The words felt inadequate for everything he'd given her. For all of it. "Don't thank me." Hawk's eyes glistened. "Just live, really live. That's all Maggie would have wanted." He pulled her into a fierce hug. "I'll be back next week. We're going to teach you to work on engines." Lily laughed through her tears. "I can't exactly ride a motorcycle." "Not yet." Hawk grinned. "But we're working on that too." He climbed back on his Harley. The other bikers revved their engines in farewell. "Remember what I told you. You're not alone anymore. You've got family, and family fights for each other." The motorcycles roared away, disappearing into the gathering dusk. Lily sat in her wheelchair, her mother's jacket across her lap, watching until the last taillight vanished. Then she turned toward the house. Tom stood on the porch, waiting. "You okay?" "Yeah." Lily wheeled herself up the ramp. "I think I actually am." They went inside together. Tom made dinner something he hadn't done in 3 years. Lily set the table. They moved around each other awkwardly, two people relearning how to share space. As they sat down to eat, Lily noticed something on the kitchen wall she'd never seen before. A photograph. Her mother, young and wild, sitting on the back of a motorcycle with her arms raised toward the sky. "I found it in the box." Tom's voice was quiet. I thought it was time to stop pretending she was someone else." Lily stared at the photograph, at the joy on her mother's face, at the freedom in her pose. "She looks happy." "She was happy." Tom's voice cracked. "And I spent 18 years trying to make her into someone who would be happier differently. I was wrong." He reached across the table and took Lily's hand. "I'm not going to make that mistake with you. Whoever you want to be, wherever you want to go, whatever thunder you need to make, I'm going to support you, even if it scares me, even if I don't understand it." Lily squeezed his fingers. That's all I ever wanted. They ate in comfortable silence. When they finished, Lily wheeled herself to the window. Outside, the stars were coming out. The same stars her mother had watched from the back of a motorcycle decades ago. The same stars Lily would watch for decades to come. She pulled her mother's jacket around her shoulders. It smelled like leather and old memories, and the ghost of a woman who had loved too hard and hidden too much, and died exactly the way she'd lived, protecting the people she loved. You okay? Tom appeared beside her. I'm thinking about what Hawk said. About living. What about it? I spent 3 years surviving, getting through each day, waiting for the pain to stop. Lily turned to face her father. But surviving isn't living. It's just existing. She looked back at the stars. I want to live now. Really live. Go to school, make friends, fall in love, make mistakes. All the things Mom wanted for me. All the things she gave up so you could have. Yeah. Lily's voice steadied. And I'm not going to waste it. Not anymore. Tom put his hand on her shoulder. I'd like to help, if you'll let me. Lily reached up and covered his hand with hers. I'd like that too. They stood together at the window, father and daughter, watching the stars emerge one by one. Somewhere out there, Hawk was riding through the night with his brothers and sisters. Somewhere Brandon was trying to figure out who he wanted to become. Somewhere the people of Ridgefield were talking about what had happened and wondering if things could really change. And here, in this small house, on this quiet street, Lily Carter was finally ready to begin. Not the life her mother had chosen for her, not the life her father had expected of her. Her own life. Wild, visible, and unapologetically loud. She was done being the girl nobody wanted to see, done apologizing for surviving, done letting fear decide who she got to be. She was Lily Carter. She had thunder in her heart, and the whole world was about to hear it. If this story touched your heart, leave a comment below. Tell us, what would you have done in that diner? Have you ever found the courage to speak when everyone else stayed silent? Don't forget to subscribe for more stories that remind us why we should never give up on each other. And remember, you don't have to be brave to stand up. You just have to be tired enough of being afraid.